So now there tends to be a little bit of a break, right? We all agree there's 3 selection spots in the draft for these franchises and 3 of this top tier receiver. And then there's a break and people kind of argue about how to rank the remaining receivers in the second tier. Denzel Mims of Baylor, I really like. Like, I might like him more than Jerry Jeudy just from a watching college tape perspective, because I wrote for my, you said, are you allowed to write a hyphenated word? Well, I wrote a phrase because to me, when I watch his game, I was just like, not today, Satan. He is not putting up with anybody's guff. He is not the most athletically gifted receiver, although that was the knock, at least about him heading into the combine, and he did seem to like quiet the naysayers with awesome scores. The 40-yard dash score, the 3-cone score was 6.66, so not today, Satan. And I really love the competitive grit that he plays with, and just that whole, like, Matt Royal really brought that whole, like, replacements underdogs energy to Baylor, and I thought that showed through in Mims's game exceptionally well.
Yep, I think you're right about that. Had there been another coach there, maybe he wouldn't have, been able to get that side out of him. So that's a great call there. I went with the word explosive, and it kind of parlays off what you said a little bit. I mean, the plays that he made downfield, the leaping catches and things like that, and the ability to kind of blast through press coverage and do all the things he can do and threaten the seam at 6'3". This is somebody who's pretty tall, pretty long receiver. Could he stand to put on some weight? Yeah. So there's some holes in his game. Yeah. But the athletic ability on the kind of what I call the freak plays, the plays that make you sit up in your chair, even if it's only a 12-yard catch, but he does something dynamic. It's like, wow, there's that explosion that he can show. Scouts were not wild about him until late in the year. I think late in the year, people finally started catching on a little bit, and he's really built the momentum, Senior Bowl, Combine, up to this point.
So let's skip around a little bit, because I want to talk about the comp, because I feel like there is a pre-Mims comp, a pre-Combine Mims comp, and then a post-Combine Mims comp. And they seem to have changed. The narrative around him, to your point, has changed. And I want to say, when I watched him, he reminded me of Alshon Jeffrey, like an Alshon Jeffrey. I don't like throwing AJ Green around, but more of a like tough, high point, great in contested situations. That kind of like natural hands receiver with a physicality about him. And then, after the combine, when he put up, wild scores, everyone was like, well, is this guy kind of like a more aggressive Tyrell Williams? And I was like, well, or like a fast Alshon Jeffrey? Like, is that what you're basically saying? So I think, to me, he is just a more athletically, in terms of measurables, gifted Alshon Jeffrey, which I like much more than a more aggressive Tyrell Williams. And I'm sure Tyrell Williams' mom doesn't appreciate her son not being called aggressive either.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. I went a little lower, but I still really like the player. I went with DJ Shark, who, had he played earlier at LSU, I think would have been able to showcase the skills that he at times has, in his first couple seasons. But, the measurables stick out. You see him run vertically. You say, guys that big don't often run that well. So, I think Shark could have been a first-round pick had Les Miles decided to play him instead of some five-star guys who ended up transferring. So, that's kind of the name that I hung on early in the process, and I haven't really heard other people say that one, so I'm sticking with it. I'm stubborn like that. But yeah, Shark is somebody who could break out in the right offense, a little bit mired in what's going on with Jacksonville now. And I worry about that with Mims. Like, if he doesn't go into the right place, he's got some volatility to his fantasy stock from that perspective. I think he's a little more QB dependent than a Lamb or even a Jeudy for that matter.
So then, what is the need to know stat that you think encompasses his game?
His hands still need work for all the great catches that he made when he required concentration. Like the jump balls, the 50-50 balls, those sorts of things. It's the easy drops, the catchable balls. He had 18
focus drops.
Yeah, exactly. 18 drops on, I think the number is 139 catchable passes over the last 2 years. So, Number one, it tells you that there were some off-target passes, right? We're probably only talking about him actually getting about 5 or 6 on-target throws per game on average. But if you're dropping one of them, or, on average per game, or a little less than that, you can lose the trust of your quarterback or your offensive coordinator or your head coach. That's the one thing that worries me about him. He's got outstanding ability. He's starting to put it all together. With the right coach, the right situation, he could be special. But those are the kind of things that hold me back on him a little bit.
So my stat, I mentioned already the 3-cone time of 6.66, which was the best among wide receivers. And also, you mentioned his size. And it's one thing, receivers have size, some receivers have speed. Mims, at least right now, post-combine, appears to have both of those things. And the main stat I want to mention, though, is that his SPARQ score is among rookie wide receivers is at 94.6%. So he does have the measurables. You're right that the concentration focus drops, but still, like, his ball tracking ability, there is an inconsistency. There is a lack of reps, a lack of polish, a greenness to his game. He's a little bit sloppy at the top of his routes. So there needs to be some refining done. He's not as polished or pro ready as the first 3 that we talked about. But where do you think, maybe not, I have 2 questions. Where do you think it would be most beneficial to him to land, and where do you think he's actually going to land? Because we both have him projected to go to the same spot.
Great question. Yeah, I mean, that's now the more I think about it, because a lot of people have said Green Bay could be the spot. Maybe it could be, but we've seen how Aaron Rodgers can freeze out a young receiver, who runs a wrong route or drops the ball. So I'm going to
the soliloquies I wrote about Equanimous St. Brown. My goodness, those are all on fire now. Yeah,
there are a lot of doghouses in Green Bay. It seems like they're filled up with wide receivers, but so I'll put that one to the side. The team we both picked, I mean, I went with the Minnesota Vikings simply because they lose Diggs. Adam Thielen can do what he does, but you still want somebody to kind of do a little more downfield work. I mean, there are times when Kirk Cousins throws a really pretty deep ball. There are other times when it's not so good, but, that's a spot that even while the Laquan Treadwell comparisons will come in, that's the little bit of a scary thing if you land in Minnesota, right? But I could see that working out.
That's not a fair comp, though.
I know. I'm just saying, like, recent wide receiver bust in round 1. The memory is still a little raw in people's minds there. So, I could see him getting that unfair tag, I would say.
I just keep thinking, I mean, like, I do think going to the 49ers would probably be best for him.
Yeah.
To work with an offensive mind like Kyle Shanahan, who took Deebo Samuel, right? And, like, recreated the wing back. Like, that's a thing now. So, I loved Deebo because, again, he had that physicality, that toughness, that grit. I tend to like players with that. But I don't think the 49ers are going to take Mims. I think, like you said, Minnesota is the likely landing spot because of the vacancy now left by Stephon Diggs. But I also think when you look at that locker room, like, Diggs was certainly a shit stirrer, right? Like, he'd be posting weird emojis, and he and Kirk Cousins didn't really get along. And I think that because of Royals' presence at Baylor and just the stigma surrounding the Bears, that Mims has, like, the personality and, like, the molding almost to fit into a situation where he can be coached up. And to have Kirk Cousins be able to, like, have his guy and have a bond with him and clear the slate makes a lot of sense for this franchise and this player.
I get it. I completely agree with you. I hadn't even considered sort of the personality fit of it all, but that's what these NFL teams are doing. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Why wouldn't we want to make sure that this type of temperament is going to work with this type of coach? It's the same as skill sets fitting in an offense or defense. So it makes perfect sense.